Hey guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about discipline and the importance of discipline as how it affects our hearts and how God can lead us into what we're called to do through the discipline of the Lord. So we're going to start in the story of King Saul and his reign before David, and we're going to see how he went about that and the difference between Saul's reign and David's reign. So we'll start in with a little bit of context before I read this verse. Saul at this point had basically disobeyed God by not, killing and eradicating the Amalekites because of what they did to Israel back in the day. Essentially, God was using King Saul to execute justice on the Amalekites. So, Saul was a tool for God for justice, and Saul didn't fulfill that justice. So God was angry at Saul and basically regretted making Saul king, as we read in 1 Samuel 15:10-11. It says, "Then the word of the Lord came to Samuel, saying, I regret that I have made Saul king, for he has turned back from following me, and has not carried out my commands. And Samuel was distressed and cried out to the Lord all night." So the interesting thing here is God has regrets for making Saul king, and you think, well, did God make a mistake on Saul? Like, how did that work? Well, really what happened is, if we read later in 1 Samuel 15:17-19, we see that Saul started off right, but along the way he went down the wrong path. So let's read it. 1 Samuel 15:17-19 reads, "Samuel said, 'Is it not true?'" This is Samuel speaking to Saul. "Is it not true, though you were little in your own eyes, you were made the head of the tribes of Israel? And the Lord anointed you king over Israel, and the Lord sent you on a mission and said, 'Go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are exterminated.' Why then did you not obey the voice of the Lord, but rushed upon the spoil and did what was evil in the sight of the Lord?" So basically, what happened was Saul was sent to go fight the Amalekites. He fought the Amalekites, but he didn't utterly destroy everything the Amalekites had. He kept some stuff for himself. He kept spoils of war for himself, and that was supposed to be all destroyed according to the word of the Lord. But what we see here in the beginning of it is that when Saul was made king over Israel, he was very little in his own eyes. So God chose Saul because he was extremely humble. But later what happened, and actually we see if you read in this passage, is that he, at the end of this, and before this moment where Samuel's talking to him, Saul actually made a monument to himself. So we see the transition from extremely humble to prideful and glorifying himself instead of glorifying God. So what happened here is we can see that Saul's heart was good at the beginning, but let's contrast that with David. In David, we actually know that God saw David's heart and saw David's character as well. It's like just like he saw Saul's, as we read in 1 Samuel 16:6-7, it says, basically, Samuel was at the house of Jesse looking for one of his sons to anoint as king. And it says, when they entered, he looked at Eliab and thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed is before him." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look at his appearance or the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For God sees not as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." So I think what's important here is we see Saul, he was seen, God saw his heart as being humble and chose him. God saw David and chose him as well. But what is the difference between Saul's story and David's story is Saul turns away from God, rebels against God, and goes his own way, while David follows God, trusts God. He makes a mistake here and there, but for the most part, he walks with God and walks after God. And I think the reason why is because of the discipline that had to happen before David became king. When Saul became king, it was like, all right, you're anointed king, go fight the Philistines, the Spirit of the Lord's on you, you have success. So all Saul experienced was the success of the Lord, being anointed by the Lord, and just prosperity and he never really experienced trials and tribulation. But if we look at David and we look at about his walk, he was a shepherd boy for a long time. Then he was a servant of the king. He was a warrior of the king. And he took a long time, and he even had many years of being hunted by Saul in the wilderness, where he had to go on his own and rely on the Lord. And we see that, actually, we get a sneak peek in the Psalms about David's heart in the whole situation. He really had to rely on the Lord. And that's the difference between King Saul and King David, is David had to go through the discipline of the Lord. And because of that, he lasted longer and was kept from evil, kept from rebellion and straying away from the Lord, while Saul failed. And the thing to know here is it wasn't about either one's heart. Both started off right. One ended off wrong and one ended off right. Because why? Because of the discipline of the Lord. So as Christians, we are also called to walk in the discipline of the Lord and to actually seek the discipline, as we read in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 7 through 8. It says, "It is for discipline that you endure. God deals with you as with sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? But if you are without discipline, of which you have become partakers, then you are illegitimate children and not sons." So every Christian, as we're called sons of God, we are also called into the discipline of the Lord and to be brought up by that discipline. And this is just another encouragement for you guys. I know you've probably heard other things on this channel about discipline, but I believe it's a really important subject that we need to learn about and really step into the discipline of the Lord and seek it, because it is our lifeblood down here. Anyways, I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your day. If you're encouraged by the video, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. And if you want to partner with me in ministry, all you have to do is share the link to this video with family and friends, and you can also support me financially by clicking the link in the description down below. Anyways, I hope you're blessed, and have a great rest of your day. Alright, bye bye.